Klein.
Thank you, Mr.
Recognized for
Chairman.
5 minutes.
Madam Secretary, congratulations, and just very, very impressed with the leadership that you've taken in the short time you've been in office, so thank you for your service. The Summit of the Americas, I think, was a great opportunity, and being from Florida, we have looked for many years at the original summit that your husband actually presided over in Miami, and since then, but even for the last number of years, there's been sort of a vacuum of interest. And it's trade, but it's so many other things that make up for a strong relationship. But one of the specific areas that I have some concern about has to do with hurricanes, believe it or not. And as hurricane season approaches, and these hurricanes start off the coast of Africa and move across and come into the Caribbean area, and we have hurricane hunter planes, which are Air Force and NOAA planes that help us understand the intensity and the direction so that we can narrow that cone of where the hurricane will make landfall. It has everything to do with the number of lives saved, the amount of dollars lost, and all those kinds of very important things. There's a gap in the area where our hurricane hunters can fly. And it was pointed out recently by the World Meteorological Organization, agency of the United Nations, that there are countries in our region, Venezuela being one of them, that are prohibiting us from flying into those areas through our NOAA planes. And other countries who share this information through the World Meteorological Organization, including Cuba, help us all provide for that safety. And I just wanted to ask you if you can take a look at that and, of course, take that up with your colleagues on a world level, of course. This is about safety and security for all of our countries in terms of getting the best data possible.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you brought this to my attention. It's not an issue that I was aware of, Congressman Klein, and we will immediately take a look at that and see if we can't remove any barriers to the hurricane hunters.
It's certainly in the best interest of all the countries, including the ones that are prohibiting the airspace. There are actually 7 storms in the last few years that formed and intensified over this area. Second, and if I can on a different subject, the conference, the Durban 2, if you will, conference took place. I'd like to extend appreciation that we did not participate, unfortunately, because the underlying purpose, of course, is a very legitimate purpose, but it was hijacked once before, and unfortunately, as we saw by Mr. Ahmadinejad's comments, it was virulent anti-Israel, anti-Semitism in many ways. But as we move forward with status with the UN Human Rights Council, we, of course, believe very strongly as Americans in the importance of human rights. Can you share share with us your thoughts on how we can reform this council, make sure that this in itself does not move in a direction of just focusing on anti-Israel behavior or anything else, but really focuses on the importance of human rights worldwide?
Well, that's exactly why we have concluded that we will stand for election and resume a role in the Human Rights Council if we are successful, because we've been very disappointed at the behavior and the priorities of the Human Rights Council. You know, there are so many important human rights issues that literally go to life and death, survival matters all over the world of horrific abuses, some of which we've discussed today, that never get raised. Nobody ever talks about them in the Human Rights Council, and I think that's a grave disservice to, you know, so many people who are hoping that, you know, they will be recognized for what they're suffering. And yet we've got to be very aware that any of these organizations, if you have a political, ideological agenda, can be hijacked. That's why after serious effort trying to see whether there was any way to salvage the Durban process, we concluded no. And you can see why we were right. You know, it's so unfair that something as serious as racism, discrimination, and xenophobia would be so totally overtaken by an agenda that didn't talk about the racism that exists all over the world that we should be focusing on. So I think, Congressman, we're going to enter this again with a very clear-eyed view that we know it's not an easy structure to interact with. We don't know whether we're going to be able to influence it, but I've had some conversations with some other countries, and we're going to try our best to form a critical mass that will, you know, make the Human Rights Council focus on the vast array of human rights problems that exist around the world.
And I thank you for that. We all believe very strongly as Americans of the importance of human rights as part of our national and international agenda. I'm one of these people, as you do, who believes in engagement. We can always say no. We can always have other consequences, but we need to try first. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary.
The time of the gentleman has expired.